A billionaire just fell from a balcony at the most expensive wedding of the year, and his last word was a name that would destroy everything. The Ashford-Pemberton wedding was the event of the season. $4 million spent on a single night. 500 guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. A ballroom dripping with roses, gold and old money. Champagne flowed like water. A 12-piece orchestra played. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over dancing couples who'd never known struggle, never known hunger, never known anything but privilege. Verity Chen stood near the edge of it all. Borrowed dress, fake smile. A surgeon who saved lives for a living, surrounded by people who'd never lifted a finger. She didn't belong here. She knew it. They knew it, but her date had insisted. One night, he'd said, "Just pretend to enjoy yourself." So she pretended, sipped champagne, watched the bride glide across the dance floor in a gown worth more than most houses. Beautiful, perfect, a fairy tale come to life. Then the scream. Verity's head snapped upward. Second-floor balcony. A man tumbling over the railing, arms flailing, mouth open in silent terror. Time slowed. He crashed through a tower of champagne glasses. Crystal exploded like fireworks. His body hit marble with a crack that silenced the orchestra mid-note. Then chaos. Guests stampeded. Women shrieked. The bride crumpled into her father's arms. Grown men in $1,000 shoes stumbled backward, horrified, helpless, but Verity ran forward. She shoved through the crowd, dropped to her knees beside the broken man. Blood pooled beneath his silver hair. His chest barely moved. "Everyone back," she shouted. "I'm a doctor." Her hands found the wound, pressed hard, her white dress soaked red. He was dying. She could feel it. 60 seconds, maybe less. Then his eyes opened. Grey, pale grey, locked onto her face like she was the only person in the room. His hand shot up, grabbed her wrist, pulled her close. "Your eyes." Blood gurgled in his throat. "I know those eyes." "Sir, stay calm. Help is coming." "Delphine." The name hit her like a slap. "What did you say?" "Delphine." Tears streamed down his bloody face. 23 years. I searched everywhere. I never stopped. Verity's heart pounded. "My name is Verity. Verity Chen. I don't know anyone named—" "You came back." His grip tightened. His voice broke. "After what I did to you, you came back." She tried to pull away. Couldn't. "Who is Delphine?" she demanded. "Who are you?" But his eyes rolled back. His hand went limp. His heart stopped beneath her palms. "No!" She started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Stay with me." Sirens wailed outside. The bride sobbed. 500 guests watched in horror. And Verity Chen knelt in a stranger's blood, fighting to save his life, while one question burned through her mind. Why did a dying billionaire look at her like he'd known her forever? Why did he call her Delphine? And why did that name feel like a key turning in a lock she never knew existed? The man's heart started again. Paramedics rushed in, lifted him onto a stretcher, wheeled him away into the night. But Verity couldn't move. She stayed kneeling on that bloody marble floor, hands trembling, dress ruined, mind racing in circles that led nowhere. Delphine. The name echoed in her skull like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. She didn't know any Delphine, had never heard the name spoken in her 28 years of life. Her mother had never mentioned it. Her father, whoever he was, remained a mystery her mother refused to discuss. Yet this stranger, this bleeding, dying billionaire, he'd looked at her with eyes full of recognition, full of longing, full of something that looked terrifyingly like love. 23 years, he'd said. I never stopped searching. 23 years ago, Verity was 5 years old, living in a cramped apartment with her mother. No money, no family, no explanation for why they moved every few years. No answer for why her mother flinched whenever someone knocked on the door. Coincidence. It had to be coincidence. A dying man's brain misfiring, seeing ghosts, calling out names from his past. But his grip on her wrist, the certainty in his voice, the tears streaming down his face. That wasn't confusion. That was recognition. Verity finally stood. Her legs shook. A waiter offered her a towel. She took it without seeing him, wiped blood from her hands without feeling the cloth. Around her the wedding had collapsed into whispers and tears. The bride sat slumped in a chair, mascara streaking her face. Guests clutched each other, phones pressed to ears, already spreading the story. Did you see him fall? Who was he? Marcus Whitmore. The Marcus Whitmore, tech billionaire, owns half of Silicon Valley. Marcus Whitmore. Verity had heard the name before. Magazine covers, news articles, one of the richest men in the country, a man who'd built an empire from nothing and guarded his private life like a fortress. And he'd looked at her like she was someone he'd lost, someone he'd loved, someone named Delphine. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Call me when you get home. We need to talk. Strange. Her mother rarely texted, and never with those words. We need to talk wasn't her style. Her mother avoided talking, avoided questions, avoided anything that might crack the careful silence she'd built around their past. Verity stared at the screen. How did her mother know something had happened tonight? The wedding was a closed event. No press allowed. The fall had occurred minutes ago. Unless... No, stop. You're being paranoid. But paranoia had kept her mother alive for 28 years. Paranoia had taught Verity to notice things others missed, to question things others accepted, to trust nothing and no one completely, including herself. She looked down at her bloody hands, at her ruined dress, at the dark stains spreading across the marble where Marcus Whitmore had almost died. Then she walked out of the ballroom, past the crying bride, past the gossiping guests, past the life she thought she knew, because something had shifted tonight, something had cracked open. And Verity Chen, the surgeon, the logical one, the woman who believed only in what she could see and prove, suddenly felt like a stranger in her own skin. A voice breaks through, older, weathered, heavy with secrets held too long. My daughter saved a stranger's life that night. Delphine, speaking from somewhere outside the story, somewhere beyond the chaos and blood. She didn't know he wasn't a stranger. She didn't know that 23 years ago I destroyed that man to save him. I took everything from him, his money, his future, his child. A pause, the weight of confession. And I've been running from the truth ever since. For those of you just joining us, welcome. You've stepped into a story about love, betrayal, and the lies we tell to protect the people we cherish most. For those of you returning, you already know how deep these waters run. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you believe about sacrifice, about motherhood, about the impossible choices we make when backed into corners with no way out. This is a story about the lies we tell for love, and the moment when those lies finally collapse under their own weight. If you've ever kept a secret that felt like it was keeping you prisoner, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because this story is about what happens when the cell door finally opens. And trust me, you don't want to miss where this goes next. Let me take you back, 23 years before that bloody ballroom floor, before the lies, before the running, before everything fell apart. I was 17 years old, invisible, forgettable, just another brown-skinned girl in a white uniform, carrying trays through rooms where people looked past me like I was furniture. My name was Delphine Marchetti, and I worked at the Harrington Estate. You need to understand what that place was. The Harrington Estate wasn't just a house. It was a statement. 47 acres of manicured perfection on the Connecticut coastline. A mansion built in 1892 by railroad money, expanded by banking money, preserved by the kind of generational wealth that most people can't even comprehend. Stone walls covered in ivy that had been growing for 100 years. Gardens, designed by architects who charged more for flowers than my mother earned in a decade. A private beach with white sand imported from the Caribbean, tennis courts, a polo field, a greenhouse filled with orchids that required their own full-time caretaker. Beauty. Everywhere you looked, beauty. But it was beauty that excluded. Beauty that reminded you, with every perfect hedge and polished marble floor, that you did not belong here. You were allowed to witness it, to clean it, to serve those who owned it. But you would never be part of it. That was the first rule I learned. There are people who are seen, and people who serve. I had always been the latter. My mother, Rosa Marchetti, had worked for the Harringtons since before I was born. She started as a kitchen assistant at 19, fresh off a boat from Italy with broken English and desperate hope. By the time I was 17, she'd worked her way up to head housekeeper. 22 years of loyalty, 22 years of perfect service, 22 years of being invisible in the most elegant way possible. Mama had hands that never stopped moving, folding, polishing, arranging, scrubbing. Even when she sat down at night, her fingers would find something to do. Mending a hem, shelling peas, braiding my hair while she hummed old Italian songs. She delivered wisdom the same way she did everything else, quietly, without fanfare, in moments you almost missed. Delphine, she told me once while we folded linens in the service hallway, in this world there are doors that will never open for people like us. You can spend your life beating against them until your fists bleed, or you can find your own door, build it yourself if you have to. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. Not really. At 17, I still believed that doors could open if you knocked hard enough. That fairy tales sometimes came true, that the universe occasionally rewarded hope. I would learn differently soon enough. That summer, I worked alongside my mother. School was finished, and college was a dream we couldn't afford. So I put on the same white uniform she wore, pinned my dark hair beneath a simple cap, and learned how to move through rooms without being noticed. I learned the rhythm of the estate. Breakfast served at 7 for Mrs. Harrington. Fresh flowers in every room by 8. Linens changed on Tuesdays and Fridays. Silver polished every Sunday. 100 small tasks that kept the machinery of wealth running smoothly. I learned which floorboards creaked and should be avoided, which doors opened silently and which announced your presence, which members of the family acknowledged staff with a nod and which looked through you like glass. Mr. Harrington Sr. was mostly absent. Business in New York, business in London, business everywhere except home. When he did appear, he moved through the house like a ghost, barely registering anyone below his social station. Mrs. Harrington, Colette, was different. She noticed everything, every wrinkle in a tablecloth, every smudge on a window, every servant who moved too slowly or breathed too loudly. She ran that estate like a general commanding an army, and God help anyone who failed to meet her standards. I stayed out of her way. We all did. And then there was their son, Cresswell Harrington III, 20 years old, home from Yale for the summer, heir to everything. I had seen him before, of course. Over the years, glimpses, a boy running through the gardens, a teenager sulking by the pool, a young man driving too fast down the gravel driveway in cars that cost more than houses. But that summer was different. That summer, he was everywhere, reading on the terrace, swimming in the ocean, arguing with his mother in voices that carried through open windows, sitting alone at the edge of the property, staring at the horizon like he was planning his escape. I watched him the way I watched everything in that house. Carefully, invisibly, from a distance that kept me safe. He was beautiful. I noticed that, even though I tried not to. Dark hair that fell across his forehead, strong jaw, grey eyes that seemed to hold storms inside them. But beautiful wasn't unusual in that world. Everyone was beautiful when they could afford the best of everything. What I noticed more was the sadness, the way he smiled at guests like he was performing a role he hated, the way he disappeared for hours and came back looking emptier than before, the way he sat at family dinners in silence while his parents discussed his future like he wasn't even there. He had everything. and he looked like a prisoner. I told myself it wasn't my business. Told myself that rich people's problems weren't real problems. Told myself to focus on my work, earn my wages, and stay invisible. But something about those grey eyes stayed with me. Something that felt like recognition. Like, maybe, despite everything that separated us, we were both trapped in worlds we hadn't chosen. The garden party was Mrs. Harrington's crown jewel. Every July, she hosted 200 of Connecticut's finest families on the estate's south lawn. White tents, string quartets, champagne that cost more per bottle than my mother earned in a week. I had worked the event before, carried trays, refilled glasses, moved through crowds of silk dresses and tailored suits like a shadow with hands. This year was no different, or so I thought. The afternoon sun blazed down on the perfectly manicured lawn. Guests gathered beneath tents draped in white linen. Laughter floated across the grass, the easy laughter of people who had never worried about rent or bills, or whether there would be food on the table tomorrow. I carried a silver tray loaded with crystal flutes of champagne, heavy, balanced on one palm the way Mama had taught me, spine straight, eyes down, invisible. The trick to serving wealthy people is simple. Don't exist. Don't make eye contact. Don't speak unless spoken to. Be a pair of hands delivering drinks, nothing more. I had perfected this trick over years of practice, until I hadn't. It happened near the rose garden. A cluster of women in enormous hats were discussing someone's divorce in scandalized whispers. I moved toward them, tray extended, offering champagne with the silent efficiency expected of staff. One of them gestured broadly, telling her story with dramatic flourish. Her elbow caught my tray at exactly the wrong angle. Time slowed. Silver tilted. Crystals slid. Champagne arced through the air in a golden wave. Then everything crashed to the ground. The sound was enormous. Shattering glass, clanging metal, gasps from every direction. 200 heads turning to find the source of the disturbance. Finding me. I dropped to my knees immediately. Started gathering broken glass with my bare hands. Apologizing in a voice I didn't recognize. Small. Terrified. Ashamed. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up. I'm sorry. Blood bloomed on my palm where crystal bit into skin. I didn't feel it. Didn't feel anything except the weight of 200 pairs of eyes judging me, dismissing me, confirming everything they already believed about people like me. For God's sake. The woman whose elbow had caused the disaster stepped backward, disgust twisting her features. Can't your staff handle basic tasks, Colette? This girl nearly ruined my Chanel. I kept my head down, kept gathering glass, kept bleeding. I assure you, Margaret, this will be addressed. Mrs. Harrington's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade, cold, controlled, promising consequences. Girl, stop that immediately. You're making it worse. I froze, hands full of broken crystal, blood dripping onto white linen napkins. Every eye on the estate fixed on my humiliation. This was it. My mother's job, our housing, everything we had built over 22 years of perfect service, destroyed by one clumsy moment. Then a voice spoke. She's not help, Mother. She's a person. The crowd shifted, parted, and Cresswell Harrington III stepped into the circle of my shame. He walked past his mother without acknowledging her, past the society women clutching their pearls, past every rule that governed his world and mine. He knelt beside me. You're bleeding. His voice was different than I expected. Soft, concerned, human. It's nothing, sir. I'm fine. I need to clean this. You need to stop cutting your hands open on broken glass. He reached out, gently took my wrist, turned my palm upward to examine the wound. I looked up then, couldn't help it. Grey eyes, storm clouds and summer rain, looking directly at me, not through me, not past me, at me, like I was a person worth seeing. Let me help you up. He stood, extended his hand. I stared at it. This hand that had never worked, never struggled, never been denied anything, offering itself to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Cresswell. His mother's voice carried a warning. The staff will handle this. You're embarrassing yourself. He didn't look at her, kept his eyes on mine, kept his hand extended. I'm not embarrassed, he said. Are you? The question was for me, and somehow, impossibly, the answer was no. In that moment, with his hand reaching for mine, I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I took his hand. He pulled me to my feet, steadied me when I wobbled, kept his grip on my fingers a moment longer than necessary. What's your name? He asked. Delphine, sir. Delphine Marchetti. Delphine. He said it like he was tasting the word, finding it sweet. That's beautiful. Cresswell. His mother again. Sharper now. That's quite enough. He finally looked at her. Something passed between them. A battle of wills fought in silence. Two people who had been fighting this same battle for years. Then he turned back to me, smiled, a real smile that reached those grey eyes and made them shine. You should have someone look at that hand, Delphine. The main kitchen has a first aid kit in the cabinet by the service door. He knew where the first aid kit was. This heir to billions knew the layout of the servants' quarters. That detail lodged in my brain and stayed there. Thank you, sir. Cress. He corrected me gently. My friends call me Cress. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because we both knew that staff and family were not friends. That this moment, however kind, changed nothing about the walls between us. But when he walked away, I felt those grey eyes on me. And when I looked up, he was watching me over his shoulder, still smiling. I gathered the rest of the broken glass, cleaned my wound, returned to service like nothing had happened. But something had happened. For the first time in 17 years, someone in that world had seen me as human. And I knew, with the certainty of someone standing at the edge of a cliff, that this was either the beginning of something wonderful or the first step toward my own destruction. It started with notes, small pieces of paper folded into impossibly tiny squares, tucked under the door of the servants' quarters, slipped between the pages of books left in places I would find them. Meet me at the lighthouse, 11 p.m., please. The first note, I ignored, threw it away, told myself it was a trick, some cruel game rich boys played with staff when they were bored. The second note, I kept, read it 17 times, then burned it in the kitchen stove. I haven't stopped thinking about you since the garden party. The third note broke me. I know you think this is impossible. I know all the reasons you should say no. But I also know that when I looked into your eyes, I saw something I've been searching for my entire life. Give me one chance, one conversation. If you feel nothing, I'll never bother you again. I went to the lighthouse. It stood on the far edge of the Harrington property. An old stone tower built a century ago, now abandoned, except for seabirds and memories. The perfect place for secrets. Cress was waiting when I arrived, sitting on the rocks with his feet dangling over the water, moonlight turning his dark hair silver. You came. He stood when he saw me, smiled that smile. I shouldn't have. But you did. I'm curious, that's all. I want to know what game you're playing. No game. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the moonlight reflected in his eyes. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I should have left. Should have remembered every lesson my mother had taught me about boundaries and survival and knowing your place. Instead, I stayed. We talked until the sun came up. He asked me questions nobody had ever asked before. What did I dream about? What books did I love? What would I do if money wasn't a barrier? Tell me something true, he said, as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. I want to help people who feel invisible. The words came out before I could stop them. I want to study medicine, become a nurse maybe, help people who slip through the cracks of a system that doesn't care about them. That's beautiful. It's impossible. Medical school costs money we don't have. Dreams are luxuries for people like you. People like me. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think I'm lucky? I'd trade everything I have for one genuine moment, One real conversation, one person who sees me as something other than an inheritance. Poor little rich boy. Yes. He met my eyes. Unflinching. Pathetic, isn't it? I have everything and nothing. A future planned out by people who don't know me. A life that looks perfect from the outside and feels like a prison from within. I should have mocked him. Should have dismissed his pain as the self-indulgent whining of someone who had never known real struggle. Instead, I understood. We were both trapped, both invisible in different ways, both longing for something more than the roles assigned to us at birth. That first night became a second, then a third, then a pattern we couldn't break. Every night at 11, I would sneak out of the servants' quarters, walk the moonlit path to the lighthouse, find him waiting. We talked about everything, philosophy and politics, books and music, our fears and hopes and the secrets we had never spoken aloud. He told me about his father's coldness, his mother's control, the expectations crushing him into a shape that didn't fit. They want me to take over the company, he said one night, marry someone appropriate, produce heirs, continue the dynasty. I'm not a person to them, I'm a vessel for carrying on a name. What do you want? Freedom. He looked at the stars. I want to wake up one morning and not know exactly what the rest of my life will look like. I want to make choices that are mine. I want to matter to someone for who I am, not what I represent. I touched his face then. First time I had initiated contact. His skin was warm beneath my fingertips. You matter to me. The kiss was inevitable. Soft at first, then deeper. His hands in my hair, my arms around his neck. Two people who had been drowning separately, suddenly breathing together. After that, the nights grew longer. The conversations grew shorter. The touches grew bolder. We explored each other in the lighthouse's shadows. Gentle, reverent. Two people discovering that bodies could speak when words failed. I knew it was dangerous. Knew we were crossing lines that could never be uncrossed. But when he held me, the world outside stopped existing. I love you. He said it first. A Tuesday night in August, with stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. You can't. I do. I love your mind and your heart and your stubborn refusal to be impressed by my money. I love that you challenge me. I love that you see me. Cress. My voice broke. Some boundaries exist because crossing them will destroy you. Then let me be destroyed. He pulled me closer. I'd rather burn with you than freeze alone in that house. I should have been stronger. Should have walked away while I still could. Instead, I told him the truth. I love you too. September came with cold winds and the first fallen leaves. The summer guests departed. The estate grew quiet, and my body began to change. I knew before I took the test. Knew from the exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. Knew from the nausea that hit every morning like clockwork. Knew from the tenderness in places that had never been tender before. Pregnant. I sat in the bathroom of the servants' quarters, staring at the positive result, feeling terror and hope wage war in my chest. Terror won. What had I done? What had we done? A baby. A Harrington baby growing inside a servant girl. The scandal would destroy my mother, end her career, maybe get us both deported. I had heard the whispers about Rosa's papers. Nothing certain, just rumors. But rumors were enough in wealthy households. One wrong move and immigration could be knocking on our door. I couldn't tell him. Couldn't add this burden to his already complicated life. Couldn't trap him with a child he hadn't planned for. But I also couldn't keep this secret. Not from Cress. Not after everything we had shared. I sent him a note. Simple. Direct. Lighthouse. Tonight. Important. He was waiting when I arrived. Smiling that smile that always made my heart stutter. But his smile faded when he saw my face. What's wrong? I couldn't speak. Just handed him the test with trembling fingers. He looked at it. Looked at me. Back at the test. Is this? I'm pregnant, Cress. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I thought maybe you should know, but I'm not asking you for anything. You don't owe me. He kissed me. Not a soft kiss. a fierce one, his hands cupping my face like I was the most precious thing he had ever held. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet, and he was smiling. "Marry me." "What?" "Marry me, Delphine, tomorrow, tonight, as soon as possible." "You can't be serious. Your family—" "I don't care about my family." He grabbed my hands, pressed them against his chest so I could feel his heart racing. "I have been looking for an excuse to escape that house my entire life. You just gave me one." A baby isn't an excuse. A baby is a responsibility, a life, a person. "I know." His voice softened. "Our person, yours and mine, a family that's actually based on love instead of contracts and expectations and bloodlines. Your mother will destroy us. Let her try." His jaw set with determination I had never seen before. "Vermont has no waiting period. We can drive there tonight, get married by morning. By the time my mother finds out, it will be done." "And then what?" "We live on love. You've never worked a day in your life. You don't know how to survive without money." "Then I'll learn." He pulled me closer. "I'll get a job. You'll study nursing like you always wanted. We'll build something real, something that matters." "You're insane." "Probably." He grinned. "Is that a yes?" I looked at this beautiful, reckless, impossibly optimistic boy, this heir to billions who was willing to throw it all away for a servant girl and an unplanned pregnancy. I should have said no, should have protected him from his own idealism, should have known that the world doesn't work the way he imagined. But hope is a powerful drug, and I was addicted. "Yes." He lifted me off my feet, spun me around while the lighthouse walls echoed with our laughter. "Tomorrow night," he said, setting me down. "Pack a bag, just essentials. I'll have a car waiting at the service entrance at midnight." "What about my mother?" "We'll send for her once we're settled, once we're safe, once there's nothing my family can do to separate us." For one brief, shining moment, I believed him. For one night, the future seemed possible. A life with Cress, a baby with his grey eyes, a small apartment somewhere, filled with books and laughter and love. I went to sleep that night smiling. I woke up the next morning to find out that the dragon had already discovered us. But here's what I've learned about hope. It makes the fall so much harder. And we were about to fall further than I ever imagined. Wednesday evening, 6:47 p.m. The sky bleeding orange and red through the windows of the main house. I was folding linens in the upstairs hallway when Helena, Mrs. Harrington's personal assistant, found me. "Mrs. Harrington requests your presence in the rose garden, immediately." My blood turned to ice. Mrs. Harrington didn't request servants. She commanded them through her staff, never deigning to speak directly to someone of my status. In 22 years, my mother had been summoned to speak with her exactly 3 times. Each time preceded by a disaster. Did she say why? Helena's face was unreadable. Immediately. I set down the linens, smoothed my uniform, tried to still my trembling hands. She knows. The thought pounded through my brain like a drumbeat. She knows about Cress, about the baby, about everything. But how? We had been so careful. Midnight meetings, secret notes, no witnesses. Unless... I walked through the main house on numb legs, past portraits of Harrington ancestors glaring down from gilded frames, past rooms filled with antiques worth more than my lifetime earnings, past every reminder of the impossible gap between their world and mine. The rose garden waited at the end of a stone path behind the conservatory, an acre of perfect blooms, tended by 3 full-time gardeners, roses of every color, every variety, every price point, thornless roses. I noticed that as I walked between the beds. Mrs. Harrington had ordered them specifically bred that way. Perfect beauty without any pain. She stood at the center of the garden, her back to me, examining a white bloom with gloved fingers. Colette Harrington was 63 years old, slim as a blade, silver hair cut in a severe bob that framed a face of elegant cruelty. She wore elegance like armor, every thread of her clothing chosen to intimidate. She did not turn when I approached. Delphine Marchetti. She spoke my name like it was something distasteful on her tongue. Daughter of Rosa, staff member since June of this year, 17 years old. Yes, ma'am. I understand you have been spending time with my son. No denial would help. She clearly had evidence. Any lie would only make things worse. Yes, ma'am. And you are carrying his child. My hand moved instinctively to my stomach. Protectively. Stupidly. Yes, ma'am. She turned then, faced me fully for the first time. Her eyes were pale blue, cold as January, empty of anything resembling human warmth. You are a thorn, Miss Marchetti. She gestured at the roses around us. Do you see these flowers? I had them bred without thorns. Do you know why? I shook my head. Because thorns serve no purpose except to cause pain. They protect nothing, preserve nothing. They simply exist to wound anyone who gets too close. She stepped toward me. You are a thorn, and I intend to remove you. Mrs. Harrington, I love your son, and he loves me. We're going to be married. The words came out stronger than I expected. Defiant. Foolish. Her laugh was worse than any insult. Married. She savored the word like poison candy. How delightfully naive. You actually believe my son would throw away his entire future for a servant girl with nothing but a pretty face and unfortunate fertility? He wants to. He asked me. We were going to leave tonight. Yes, Vermont. The car at midnight. The romantic escape. She smiled, knowing. Did you think I don't monitor my son's communications? Did you imagine anything happens in this house without my knowledge? She had intercepted the notes. Read our plans. Known everything before we could execute anything. You can't stop us. Cress is an adult. He can make his own choices. Can he? She reached into her pocket, withdrew a slim folder, held it out to me. Before you make any more declarations about what can and cannot happen, I suggest you review the contents of this file. I took the folder with shaking hands, opened it. Immigration documents. My mother's immigration documents. Her visa application from 22 years ago, and a red stamp across the front page, fraudulent. Your mother's visa was forged. Mrs. Harrington's voice held no emotion, just facts. A remarkably good forgery, I'll admit. It fooled authorities for over 2 decades, but forgeries can always be detected if one knows where to look. This is a lie. Is it? I have 3 immigration attorneys who will testify otherwise. I have contacts in Homeland Security who owe me favors. I have the power to make your mother's life a living nightmare with a single phone call. I stared at the documents, the words blurring through my tears. What do you want? I want you to disappear. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Expensive, suffocating. I want you to leave this estate tonight. Leave Connecticut. Leave any state within 1,000 miles of my family. And if I refuse, then your mother will be deported within 6 weeks. She will spend years trying to appeal from whatever country will take her. She will lose everything she has built, and you will watch it happen knowing you could have prevented it. The ground shifted beneath my feet. All those years of work, all my mother's sacrifices, all the nights she came home with aching hands and tired eyes, building something from nothing in a country that was supposed to offer hope. Gone. Because I fell in love with the wrong boy. Cress won't let this happen. Cress will do exactly as he's told once he understands the consequences. Her smile sharpened. If you truly love my son, you will save him from the disaster you represent. I see confusion in your eyes, Miss Marchetti. Colette gestured for me to follow her deeper into the rose garden. Let me clarify exactly what you're facing. I followed. What choice did I have? She walked slowly, deliberately, every step calculated to prolong my suffering. Option 1, you tell my son the truth. He reacts predictably, anger, defiance, declarations of love. He refuses to abandon you, insists on fighting. She stopped, turned to face me. Do you know what happens then? I ship Cresswell to our Singapore office, a 3-year assignment, no communication with anyone outside the company. By the time he returns, you will be a distant memory. He'd refuse to go. Would he, without access to any family funds? without any of the connections that make his charmed life possible. How long do you think your romance survives when he's working entry-level positions and you're scrubbing toilets to pay rent? She resumed walking. I followed like a dog on an invisible leash. Meanwhile, your mother faces deportation. Your child, if you keep it, is born into chaos. Custody battles, immigration hearings, lawyers bleeding you dry of money you don't have. We would fight, together. Yes, you would fight, and you would lose, because I have resources you cannot comprehend. Attorneys on retainer, judges who owe me favors, politicians who depend on my donations. She reached a stone bench and sat, patted the space beside her like we were friends sharing gossip. I remained standing. Option 2. She pulled an envelope from her jacket pocket, set it on the bench between us. You take this. You disappear. You tell my son whatever lies are necessary to ensure he doesn't follow you, and everyone survives. I stared at the envelope. Thick, heavy, the kind of envelope that held something substantial. What is that? Open it. My hands betrayed me. Reached for the envelope against my will. Opened it. A check. A number so large it didn't look real. $500,000. Consider it a severance package, Colette said. Enough to start over somewhere far from here. Enough to raise a child in comfort. Enough to ensure your mother can live out her days without fear. You're trying to buy me. I'm offering you a future, one that doesn't end in destruction for everyone involved. She stood, smoothed her skirt. The only condition is your complete and permanent disappearance. Cress will look for me, not if you give him a reason to stop looking. Her eyes glinted with cruel intelligence. Tell him the baby isn't his. Tell him you've been sleeping with someone else all along. Tell him you never loved him, that it was always about the money. He won't believe that. He will if you're convincing enough. Young men are remarkably susceptible to betrayal. Break his heart thoroughly, and he'll spend his energy hating you instead of searching for you. You want me to destroy him. I want to save him. For the first time, something that might have been genuine emotion crossed her face. From a marriage that would alienate him from his family, from a child that would derail his future, from a woman who could never give him the life he deserves. He doesn't want the life you've planned for him, but he doesn't know what he wants. He's 20 years old, intoxicated by hormones and rebellion. In 10 years, he'll thank me for preventing the biggest mistake of his life. I thought about running, thought about grabbing that check and tearing it to pieces, thought about finding Cress and telling him everything, letting him fight alongside me. But Colette wasn't finished. One more thing, Miss Marchetti, in case you're considering heroics. She pulled out her phone, showed me a photograph. This is your cousin Maria's restaurant in Queens. Lovely little place. It would be a shame if the health department suddenly found violations. Another photograph. Your Aunt Lucia's nursing license. Surprisingly easy to challenge when you know the right people. Another. Your grandmother in Italy. Her pension depends on government programs that can be influenced by the right donations. She put the phone away. I will destroy you so thoroughly that you won't remember you ever existed. You, your mother, every member of your family who has ever loved you, no corner of the world will be safe. No job will hire you. No landlord will rent to you. I will turn you into a ghost, and then I will erase even that. The garden suddenly felt like a prison. The beautiful roses like bars. The sweet perfume like poison gas. Why do you hate me this much? I don't hate you, Miss Marchetti. She adjusted her gloves, checked her watch. I simply protect what's mine, and my son is mine. His future is mine. His children, his legitimate children, will be mine. She walked toward the house, paused, looked back. You have until midnight to decide. Leave the check on my desk if you accept. Leave my property if you don't. Either way, by morning this will be over. She disappeared into the house. I stood alone among the thornless roses, holding $500,000 and the broken pieces of my future. I don't know how long I stood in that garden. Minutes, hours. The sun set. The stars emerged. The temperature dropped until my breath came out in clouds. Eventually, my legs carried me back to the servants' quarters. Through the service entrance. Up the narrow stairs. into the small room I shared with my mother. Mama was there, sitting on her bed, waiting. She knew. I could see it in her eyes. Somehow, she already knew. Helena told me you were summoned. Her voice was steady, calm in a way that only came from years of weathering storms. What did she say? I couldn't speak, just handed her the folder. The immigration documents, the evidence of her secret. She looked at the papers, closed her eyes, set them aside. I should have told you, she said quietly. Years ago, when you were old enough to understand. Is it true? The visa? It's true. The original was denied. A man in Rome, he made papers, good papers. I paid him everything I had. She opened her eyes, met my gaze. I was 18 years old, Delphine. I had nothing. My father had died. My mother was sick. America was my only hope. All these years, I lived in fear, every day, every time someone knocked on the door, every time an official asked for identification. I have waited 22 years for this moment. I sat beside her on the bed, took her hand, felt the calluses, the scars, the evidence of a lifetime spent working while afraid. She gave me this. I showed her the check, $500,000, to disappear, to lie to Cress, to break his heart and vanish forever. Mama looked at the number. Her eyes widened briefly, then hardened. And what did you tell her? I didn't. She gave me until midnight to decide. Mama stood, walked to the small window that overlooked the kitchen garden. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned, took the check from my hands, and tore it in half. We don't take money for heartbreak. Mama, no. Her voice sharpened. I did not come to this country, did not work myself to bone for 22 years, did not sacrifice everything I had so that my daughter could sell her soul for a rich woman's check. But your papers, the deportation, let them deport me. She lifted her chin, defiant, proud. I have survived worse than immigration judges. I survived poverty. I survived losing my family. I survived building a life in a country that didn't want me. I can't let you lose everything. Everything. She laughed, bitter but strong. Delphine, you are everything. You and this baby you carry, that is what matters. Buildings can be rebuilt, jobs can be found. But if I let you destroy yourself for my sake, if I watch you break your own heart to save mine, that I could never survive. She crossed the room, took my face in her hands, those working hands, those loving hands. Do you love him? This boy? Yes. Then fight for him. Let me worry about myself. But even as she said the words, I saw the truth behind them, the fear she was trying to hide, the knowledge that Colette Harrington had the power to follow through on every threat. And I saw something else, a question in her eyes that she almost couldn't bring herself to ask. But Delphine. Her grip on my face tightened. Do you love him enough to let him go? What do you mean? If you tell him the truth, he will fight. That boy, I have watched him all summer. He will throw away everything for you, his family, his money, his future. He will burn down his whole life to stand beside you. Is that wrong? No, it is beautiful. It is love. She released me, stepped back. But it is also destruction, not just for him, for you, for the baby, for everyone. I didn't understand, didn't want to understand. If Cress fights, his mother fights harder. She has resources, connections, power we cannot match. The battle could last years. Your child would be born into a war zone. So what? I should just give up? You should think. Mama sat heavily on her bed, suddenly looking older than her years. Sometimes love means sacrifice. Sometimes protecting someone means letting them go. That's not love. That's cowardice. Is it? She met my eyes. Or is it the hardest, bravest thing a person can do, to accept pain so that someone else doesn't have to? I thought about Cress, his dreams of freedom, his hatred of his family's expectations, his desperate desire to be more than just an inheritance. If he fought for me, he would lose everything. His family, his resources, his ability to help anyone. including himself, and he would spend the rest of his life fighting a war he couldn't win, against a mother who would never stop, in a system rigged against people like us. If I tell him the truth, I said slowly, he'll never stop. He'll sacrifice everything, and Colette will destroy him for it. Yes. But if I lie, if I make him hate me, he'll be free. Mama's voice was barely a whisper. He'll hurt, he'll rage, but eventually he'll move on, build a life, find someone his mother approves of. He'll think I never loved him. Better that than watching you both drown. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of impossible choices. I thought about the lighthouse, about his grey eyes filled with hope, about the way he said my name, like it was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. And I made my decision. I'll do it. The words tasted like ashes. I'll lie. I'll break his heart. I'll make him hate me. Mama closed her eyes. Tears escaped despite her efforts. Then you're braver than I ever was. I don't feel brave. The brave never do. I stood, checked the clock. 3 hours until midnight. I need to write a note, ask him to meet me at the lighthouse, one last time. Mama nodded, said nothing. What was there to say? I walked to the small desk we shared, found paper and pen, and I began to compose the lie that would define the rest of my life. 11:47 p.m. The lighthouse stood black against a star-scattered sky. I had prepared for this moment for hours, practiced the words, rehearsed the expressions, made my face into a mask of cruelty that felt foreign on my features. I would have to be convincing, more convincing than I had ever been about anything. One moment of weakness, one crack in the facade, and Cress would see through the lie. And then he would fight, and then we would all be destroyed. I climbed the familiar path to our meeting place. Each step felt like walking toward an execution. He was already there, standing at the edge of the rocks, silhouetted against the moon. When he heard my footsteps, he turned, smiled, that smile I had fallen in love with. You came. He moved toward me, arms open, ready to embrace the future we had planned together. Stop! My voice came out sharper than intended. Good. I needed sharp. He froze, confusion flickering across his features. What's wrong? We need to talk. Okay, let's talk. He reached for my hands. But first, the car is ready. We should leave in the next hour if we want to make Vermont by... I'm not going to Vermont. The words hung in the air between us. Poison released into an innocent atmosphere. What? I'm not going with you, Cress. There's no wedding, no escape, no us. I don't understand. Last night you said... I lied. It began. The destruction. Word by terrible word. Everything I said was a lie. The love, the plans, the future, all of it. Delphine, what's happening? Did my mother threaten you? Because whatever she said, your mother has nothing to do with this. I made my own choice. I forced my voice to harden, forced contempt into every syllable. I chose the smart path, the realistic path, the path that doesn't involve throwing away my life for a spoiled rich boy who doesn't know how the real world works. You don't mean that. Don't I? I laughed. Cruel. Practiced. Wake up, Cress. You thought this was love. You thought a servant girl actually fell for the heir to the Harrington fortune. You did. I know you did. I saw it in your eyes every night we spent here. You saw what you wanted to see, what I let you see. I turned away from him, couldn't bear to watch his face crumble while I delivered the killing blow. The baby isn't yours. Silence. So complete I could hear waves crashing on rocks far below. What did you say? The baby isn't yours. Each word a separate bullet. I've been seeing Daniel from the kitchen staff. We've been together for months, long before you noticed me at that garden party. You're lying. Am the first. I turned back, met his eyes, forced myself not to flinch at the devastation I saw there. Think about it. How convenient that the poor servant girl gets pregnant by the billionaire's son. How perfectly timed to secure a fortune. That's not who you are. You don't know who I am. You know who I pretended to be. I stepped closer, driving the knife deeper. I was using you, Cress, for money, for security, for a ticket out of the life I was born into. I don't believe you. Believe whatever you want. It doesn't change the truth. His hands were shaking. His grey eyes, those beautiful grey eyes I had loved so desperately, were filling with tears. Look at me. His voice cracked. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't love me. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I could break now. Collapse into his arms. Confess everything. Beg him to fight beside me. Or I could save him. Set him free. Let him hate me instead of destroying himself. I looked directly into his eyes. I don't love you. My voice didn't waver, didn't break. The greatest performance of my life. I never did. Something shattered in him. I watched it happen, watched the light in his eyes die, watched his face transform from heartbreak to something harder, colder, unrecognizable. Get out! His voice was barely human, a whisper from somewhere wounded beyond repair. Get out, and don't ever let me see you again. Gladly, I turned, started walking away. Every step an agony I refused to show. Delphine. I stopped, didn't turn. I hope it was worth it. Whatever she paid you, I hope you can live with yourself. I walked away without looking back, across the rocks, down the path, through the darkness toward the servants' quarters, where my mother waited with packed bags and terrified eyes. I did not cry. Not then. Not during the taxi ride to the train station. Not on the overnight train to Boston. I cried 3 days later, in a motel room in Albany, when the adrenaline finally faded and the reality of what I had done settled into my bones. I cried for hours, days, weeks, months. I took my mother's hand, and we vanished into the night, 3,000 miles from Connecticut, from the Harringtons, from Cress, from the only man I would ever love. Have you ever had to choose between two impossible options, where every path led to someone getting hurt? Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have made the same choice I made? Or would you have fought, even knowing you might lose everything? Albuquerque, New Mexico, 3,000 miles from everything I had ever known. The city rose from the desert like a fever dream, red rocks and adobe buildings and sunsets that painted the sky in colors I had never seen in Connecticut. A world so different from the Harrington estate that it might as well have been another planet. We arrived in October with 2 suitcases and $500 my mother had saved over 20 years. Not the $500,000 Colette had offered, just honest money, earned through honest work, enough to start over. We found a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of downtown. Cracked linoleum floors, walls thin enough to hear every argument next door. A kitchen smaller than the Harringtons' pantry. It was ours. That was enough. Mama found work within a week, cleaning houses for wealthy families in the foothills. Different names, different faces, same invisible labor she had performed her entire life. I found work too, waitressing at a diner on Central Avenue. Long shifts, lousy tips, feet aching at the end of every night. And my belly grew. The pregnancy progressed through autumn into winter. I worked until I couldn't hide the bump beneath my apron anymore. Then I worked behind the counter, taking orders and running the register, while my back screamed and my ankles swelled. February 3rd, 2002. The coldest night of the year. My water broke at 2 a.m. Mama called a taxi. We raced through empty streets to the hospital. 18 hours of labor, screaming, sweating, pushing against pain that felt like it would split me in half. And then, a cry, small and fierce and perfect. The nurse placed her in my arms, red-faced and wrinkled and covered in fluids that should have been disgusting but somehow weren't. My daughter, our daughter, the impossible product of an impossible love. She had her father's eyes. Even then, minutes old, those grey eyes stared up at me with an intensity that stole my breath. Storm clouds and silver rain. Cress, looking out at me from a face that was half mine. "What will you call her?" the nurse asked. I had thought about names for months. Traditional names, pretty names, names that would help her fit in, blend in, become invisible the way I had been invisible. But looking at those eyes, I knew none of those names were right. "Verity," I said. "Her name is Verity." The nurse smiled. "That's beautiful. Does it have a meaning?" "It means truth." I pulled my daughter closer, pressed my lips to her tiny forehead. "I've built my life on lies, but she will stand for something honest." It was a promise, a hope, a prayer, a vow I would break 1,000 times over the next 20 to 3 years. Because the lies didn't stop when Verity was born. They multiplied, grew stronger, became the foundation on which our entire existence was built. "Where is my father?" She asked this question first at 4 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a crayon drawing of our family, 2 stick figures, her and me and Mama. I had prepared for this moment, rehearsed the answer. "Your father died before you were born, sweetheart. A car accident, a tragedy." She accepted this easily at 4, asked follow-up questions at 7, demanded details at 12. I provided them, made them up as needed, invented a man named Michael Chen, a kind, brilliant medical student who died on a rainy night when a drunk driver crossed the center line. I chose the last name Chen because it was common enough to be untraceable. I gave Michael Chinese heritage because Verity's features, combined with my Italian blood, could pass for mixed Asian descent if no one looked too closely. Lies upon lies upon lies. But beneath it all, always, the constant vigilance. No photographs from before Albuquerque, no stories about Connecticut, no threads that could be pulled to reveal the truth beneath. We moved every few years. Albuquerque to Phoenix to Denver to Seattle. Different cities, different schools, different chances for Verity to ask questions. I told myself it was necessary, told myself I was protecting her. From the Harringtons, from the truth, from the weight of knowing she was the unwanted offspring of a shattered love affair. But mostly, I was protecting myself, from having to explain what I had done, from having to justify the lies I had told, from having to see my daughter's face when she learned that her father wasn't dead, he just didn't know she existed. I worked 3 jobs through those early years: waitressing, cleaning, bookkeeping for a small accounting firm. Mama watched Verity while I worked, taught her to cook, taught her Italian lullabies, taught her the strength that came from generations of women who survived when survival seemed impossible. And somehow, in the cracks between exhaustion and fear, I found my own path forward. Nursing school, night classes while Verity slept and Mama kept watch, years of studying, years of clinicals, years of pushing toward a dream I had abandoned in that rose garden. By the time Verity started kindergarten, I was a registered nurse. By the time she started high school, I was a nurse practitioner. By the time she graduated, I was the head of nursing at a community health clinic, serving patients who slipped through the cracks of a system that didn't care about them. Just like I had promised Cress all those years ago in the lighthouse, I found my purpose, built something meaningful, helped people who felt invisible. But I never stopped looking over my shoulder, never stopped flinching when someone knocked on the door, never stopped wondering if today would be the day the past caught up with me. And I never stopped carrying the secret that grew heavier with every passing year. The internet made hiding easier and harder at the same time. Easier because I could change names, change cities, change everything without leaving physical trails. Harder because I could watch him. Cress, my Cress, the boy who had become a man while I hid 3,000 miles away. I told myself I wouldn't look, promised myself I would move forward, let go, focus on building rather than mourning. But loneliness is a persistent enemy, and on dark nights when Verity was asleep and Mama was watching television, I would open my laptop and type his name into search engines. The results multiplied as the years passed. Business magazines featuring his face on covers. The Harrington heir takes the helm. How Cresswell Harrington III doubled his family's fortune. Tech investments pay off for young billionaire. Society pages tracking his appearances at galas and charity events. Always photographed beside beautiful women in designer gowns. Always smiling that practiced smile that never reached his eyes. I watched him transform from the heartbroken boy I had left at the lighthouse into something colder, harder, unrecognizable. The first marriage happened when Verity was 6. Penelope Ashworth Hayes, daughter of shipping magnates. Perfect pedigree, perfect breeding. The kind of match Colette Harrington had always wanted for her son. The wedding photos filled newspapers for weeks. Penelope in Vera Wang, Cress in a tailored tuxedo. A cathedral filled with society's finest. A reception that cost more than most people earned in a decade. He didn't look happy. Even through the lens of paparazzi cameras, I could see the emptiness behind his eyes. The divorce came 3 years later. Quiet. Expensive. No public explanation beyond irreconcilable differences. Then came the rumors. Affairs with actresses, models, the wife of a senator. Women who entered his orbit and exited just as quickly, leaving whispers of emotional distance and an inability to connect. Cresswell Harrington, the billionaire who can't find love. I read that headline while Verity was at a middle school dance, her first, her excitement filling our small apartment for days beforehand. My daughter learning to love while her father had apparently forgotten how. My fault. All my fault. The lies I had told that night at the lighthouse had done exactly what I intended. He had stopped looking for me, stopped believing in love, stopped trusting that anyone could want him for himself rather than his money. I had broken something in him that refused to heal. Some nights, I came so close to reaching out, wrote emails I never sent, drafted letters I burned in the kitchen sink, practiced phone calls I never made. Hello, Cress, it's Delphine. I lied to you. About everything. The baby is yours, has always been yours. I'm sorry. But what would that change? After so many years, after he had built a life, however empty, without me, the truth would only reopen wounds that had scarred over, would only prove that everything he now believed about love and betrayal was founded on my deception. Better to let him hate me in peace than to shatter him all over again with the truth. At least, that's what I told myself. In reality, I was terrified. Terrified of his reaction. Terrified of Colette's reach, which had only grown stronger as the Harrington empire expanded. Terrified that telling the truth would finally destroy what little remained of the life I had built. So I watched from a distance, a ghost haunting screens instead of hallways. I watched him grow richer and colder and more alone. I watched him date women who looked nothing like me. I watched him smile for cameras while his eyes remained dead, and I wondered every single day if he ever thought about me, if he ever questioned the story I had told him, if any part of him still remembered the lighthouse and the stars and the boy he used to be. Verity grew up fierce. From the moment she could walk, she moved through the world with a determination that reminded me of her father. Stubborn, driven, refusing to accept limitations anyone tried to place on her. She was brilliant. Teachers noticed it early. Advanced reading by age 5, advanced math by 7, a mind that absorbed information like a sponge and refused to release it. Your daughter is exceptional, her 3rd grade teacher told me at a parent conference. Has she been tested for gifted programs? She had. She qualified for every program available, skipped grades, took advanced classes, left classmates behind without seeming to notice or care. By high school, she had decided on her future. I want to be a surgeon. We were eating dinner in our Seattle apartment. Verity was 15, already taking college-level biology courses, already planning a life I could barely comprehend. A surgeon? That's years of training, decades of school. I know. She met my eyes with that familiar grey intensity. I want to fix things that are broken. Hearts, specifically. Cardiac surgery. My own heart stuttered. Why hearts? She shrugged. Because they're the center of everything. Because when a heart fails, nothing else matters. Because I want to be the person who saves lives when no one else can. She had her father's dream of freedom wrapped in her own version. Instead of escaping expectations, she had chosen to exceed them. I should have told her then. Should have explained why her ambition felt like destiny rather than coincidence. Should have revealed that her biological father had once dreamed of escaping his gilded cage, the same way she dreamed of entering operating rooms. Instead, I said, "I'm proud of you." And I meant it, even as the lie sat heavy in my chest. Medical school came after a bachelor's degree completed in 3 years instead of 4. Johns Hopkins, one of the best programs in the country. My daughter, the cook's granddaughter, studying medicine at an institution that had trained the finest physicians in the world. Surgical residency followed. General surgery first, then cardiothoracic specialization. 7 years of 100-hour weeks. 7 years of learning to hold human hearts in her hands. By 30, she was a fully trained cardiothoracic surgeon. By 32, she had secured a position at St. Augustine's Medical Center, one of the premier cardiac units in the country. My daughter, the heart surgeon. I said it to Mama one afternoon, watching Verity on a television interview about a groundbreaking procedure she had pioneered. Operating on patients worth more than our entire bloodline. Mama smiled, squeezed my hand, said nothing. She knew, as I knew, that Verity's success was built on a foundation of lies, that her achievements, however genuine, existed because I had hidden her origins, had denied her the Harrington name that might have opened doors but would have come with chains attached. But success couldn't fill the hole Verity carried. I saw it sometimes, in quiet moments, when she thought no one was watching, a longing for something she couldn't name. A question about her father that she had learned not to ask because my answers never satisfied her. A sense that pieces of her own story were missing. "Tell me about him again," she asked once, during a rare visit home, wine in hand, guard down. "About my father. What do you want to know?" "Everything, anything, something true." Something true. The words cut deeper than she knew. He was kind. This, at least, was honest. He saw people others overlooked. He dreamed of making a difference in the world. What did he look like? I closed my eyes, saw Cress standing at the lighthouse, moonlight in his hair, storm clouds in his eyes. He had grey eyes, beautiful grey eyes, just like yours. She touched her face, as if seeing herself for the first time. "I have his eyes." "Yes. Every time I look at you, I see him." She smiled, sad and searching and unsatisfied, because she knew. Some part of her had always known that the story I told didn't add up, that the details were too sparse, that a mother who remembered a dead husband should have photographs, mementos, evidence of his existence. But she had stopped asking years ago, had accepted that some doors were meant to stay closed, had built her identity on fragments rather than truth. My daughter, living proof that lies could create beautiful things, but also proof that lies created distance, walls, a subtle separation between us that neither of us acknowledged but both of us felt. The news arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was at the clinic reviewing patient files when my phone buzzed with a Google alert, an automated notification I had set up years ago, programmed to inform me whenever significant news mentioned the Harrington family. Colette Harrington, matriarch of the Harrington dynasty, passes at 86. I read the headline 3 times before it registered. Colette was dead. The woman who had threatened my mother, who had forced me to destroy the only love I had ever known, who had haunted my nightmares for over 2 decades. Dead. I closed my office door, sat at my desk, stared at the screen as articles loaded. Natural causes, peaceful passing, surrounded by family at the Connecticut estate, services to be held privately, with a public memorial announced later. Photographs accompanied the obituaries. Colette in her prime. Colette at charity galas. Colette standing beside her son at various events, looking every inch the society matriarch she had always been. And one photograph I hadn't seen before. Recent. Cress standing at what appeared to be a garden party, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. A caption identified her as Marlena Vance Worthington, his fiancée. He was getting married again. I scrolled through more articles, pieced together the timeline. Colette had been ill for months. Cancer, though the family had kept it quiet. She had passed 6 months ago, and Cress had announced his engagement shortly after. Moving on, building a life, finding happiness perhaps, now that his mother's controlling presence was finally gone. The threat that had kept me silent for 23 years had vanished. No more Colette. No more powerful matriarch with connections in immigration and politics. No more dragon guarding the Harrington fortune with threats and intimidation. I could tell the truth now. The thought hit me like a physical blow, knocked the breath from my lungs, sent my heart racing in my chest. I could tell Verity about her father, could reach out to Cress, could explain everything, the threats, the lies, the impossible choice I had made to protect everyone I loved. Freedom. After 23 years of captivity, the cell door stood open. But I didn't move, because what good was truth now? Cress had moved on, was engaged to someone appropriate, was building the life his mother had always wanted for him, just without her there to see it. Verity had grown up without him, had become successful, accomplished, independent, had constructed her identity around the absence of a father. What would truth accomplish except destruction? Disrupting Cress's new happiness, shattering Verity's understanding of herself, reopening wounds that had scarred over decades ago. I told myself I was protecting them, both of them, from pain they didn't need, from revelations that would only cause suffering. I told myself that some secrets were better left buried, but in my heart I knew the truth. I was afraid of facing what I had done, afraid of Verity's anger, afraid of Cress's reaction, afraid that the life I had built would collapse under the weight of my confession. So I did nothing, closed the articles, returned to my patient files, continued living the lie that had become my entire existence. I told myself I was protecting my daughter from pain, but the universe has a way of forcing truth into the light, whether we're ready or not. I didn't realize I was sending her directly into the lion's den. 23 years. That's how long I kept my silence. Nearly a quarter century of watching from the shadows, of answering my daughter's questions with carefully constructed lies, of wondering what would have happened if I had been brave enough to fight. And then, one phone call changed everything. 3 weeks after Colette's death announcement, Verity came to visit. This was unusual. My daughter rarely took time off. Her schedule was demanding, her patients were critical, and her dedication to her work bordered on obsession. But she had a conference in San Francisco. A quick stopover in Seattle on her way home made logistical sense. We sat in my kitchen, the same small kitchen we had shared for the past 8 years, ever since Mama passed and I no longer needed the second bedroom. Verity wore scrubs beneath her jacket. Exhaustion shadowed her eyes, but she smiled as she accepted the coffee I offered, settling into the chair that had always been hers. "How's the conference?" I asked. "Fine. Same presentations about the same procedures from the same people." She sipped her coffee. "I'm not even sure why I agreed to go." "Networking? Politics?" She shrugged. "The hospital likes visibility. Good for funding, good for recruitment." We talked about her cases, her colleagues, the apartment she was renovating in Boston, safe topics that filled silence without requiring vulnerability. Then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. "What is it?" "Regional Trauma Network alert. I'm on the secondary call list this month." She typed a quick response. "Some event happening near the conference venue. They want backup surgeons on standby in case of emergency." "What kind of event?" "Wedding reception. Some billionaire's party in the same building." She rolled her eyes. "Rich people and their elaborate celebrations. The security reception. Some billionaire's party in the same building." She rolled her eyes. "Rich people and their elaborate celebrations. The security team requested medical backup because apparently money doesn't protect you from choking on caviar." My blood ran cold. "What billionaire?" Verity shrugged, already moving on to another topic. Harrington? Harrison? Something old and pretentious. I wasn't really paying attention. Harrington. The name slammed into me like a freight train. Cress. The wedding. The engagement to Marlena Vance Worthington. It was happening. This weekend. In the same building where my daughter would be attending her conference. Verity. Anyway, I need to get back to the hotel. Early session tomorrow. She stood, kissed my cheek, grabbed her bag. I'll call you when I get home, okay? Wait. She paused at the door, turned. What? This was the moment. The chance to speak, to warn her, to finally, after 23 years, tell her the truth. But the words lodged in my throat, stuck behind decades of practice at swallowing them down. How could I explain? Standing in my kitchen with 30 seconds before she walked out the door, how could I compress a lifetime of lies into a warning she would actually understand? Be careful, I managed. At the conference, take care of yourself. She smiled. Always do. And then she was gone. Out the door. Into the night. Toward a collision course I had failed to prevent. I stood in my empty kitchen for a long time, telling myself it would be fine, that the chances of Verity actually encountering the Harrington wedding were minimal, that she was backup only, unlikely to be called, that even if she was called, she would be one of many medical professionals, anonymous and invisible. Lies, more lies. Lies I told myself because the truth was too terrifying to face. My daughter was walking into a building where her biological father was celebrating his new marriage, where Harrington family members would be gathered, where someone might look at her grey eyes and see what I had been hiding for over 2 decades. And I had said nothing. I picked up my phone, started typing a message. Verity, I need to tell you something important. Call me before. I deleted it. Started again. There's something about the Harrington family you should know. Deleted again. What could I say in a text? How could I explain through a phone screen the magnitude of what I had concealed? I would call her tomorrow, after the conference session, before the wedding. There was still time. There had to be time. I set down my phone and went to bed. I didn't sleep. The Sinclair Hotel was exactly what Verity expected from old money. Marble floors polished to mirrors. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light on designer gowns and tailored suits. Flowers arranged with an artistry that probably cost more than her annual salary. She wasn't supposed to be here. The conference had ended early. A keynote speaker had cancelled, leaving an awkward gap in the schedule. Most attendees had scattered to networking dinners and private meetings. Verity had been about to return to her hotel when the page came through. Medical backup requested. Harrington Vance wedding reception, Sinclair Hotel Grand Ballroom, report immediately. The original on-call surgeon had fallen ill. Food poisoning, apparently. Verity was next on the list. So, here she was, standing at the edge of a billionaire's wedding reception, wearing her conference attire beneath a borrowed blazer, watching people who had never worked a day in their lives celebrate love that probably had more to do with mergers than romance. She stayed near the service entrance, out of the way, invisible, the way her mother had taught her to be, though she had never understood why. The reception unfolded with choreographed precision, speeches that drew practiced laughter, a first dance that looked more like a performance than a moment of genuine connection, champagne flowing freely into glasses that never seemed to empty. The bride was beautiful, Marlena Vance Worthington, daughter of pharmaceutical royalty. Perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect smile. The groom. Verity found her attention drawn to him repeatedly. Cresswell Harrington III. She had read about him, of course. Everyone in medicine knew the Harrington name. Their foundation had funded half the cardiac research centers in the country. He was handsome, distinguished, silver touching his temples now but still striking, moving through the crowd with the ease of someone who had spent a lifetime being watched. But something about him seemed off. His smile didn't reach his eyes. His laughter came a beat too late. He looked like a man going through motions he had rehearsed so many times they no longer required thought. "You're staring." Verity startled. A server stood beside her, offering a tray of champagne. "Sorry, just observing. First time at one of these. That obvious?" The server smiled. "You don't have the look, the bored entitlement, the practiced disinterest in everything that costs less than $1,000. Verity laughed. "I'm just the medical backup, here in case someone chokes on an oyster." "Ah, the help." The server's smile widened. "Welcome to our world." She took a champagne flute, sipped, let the bubbles dance on her tongue while she continued watching. The groom had moved to the second-floor balcony now, standing alone, looking down at the party below like he was observing his own life from a distance. Something about his posture, his stillness. It reminded her of something she couldn't name. Then it happened. A shout, movement on the balcony. Cresswell Harrington's body tilting, falling, plummeting over the railing. Time slowed. He crashed through a tower of champagne glasses. Crystal exploded. His body struck the marble floor with a crack that silenced the orchestra. Screaming, chaos, guests stampeding in every direction. But Verity was already moving. She shoved through the crowd, dropped to her knees beside the broken man. Blood pooled beneath his silver hair. His chest barely moved. "Everyone back!" Her voice cut through the hysteria. "I'm a cardiac surgeon. Give me room." The crowd parted. Space opened around her. Someone pressed cloth into her hands for the head wound. She worked fast, assessed injuries, checked vitals, found the real problem. Cardiac tamponade. Blood collecting in the sac around his heart, compressing it, preventing it from beating. He was dying. Not from the fall, from his heart failing in the aftermath. "I need a pericardiocentesis kit. Now." She scanned the crowd, found a hotel manager frozen in shock. "Medical supplies, where are they?" Someone ran. Verity continued working, keeping him alive through sheer force of will while her training took over. The kit arrived. She sterilized, located the landmark beneath his sternum, inserted the needle. Dark blood flowed into the syringe. The pressure released. His heart began beating stronger. She had him. He was going to survive. And then his eyes opened. Grey, pale grey, like storm clouds, like silver rain, like her own eyes staring back from a mirror. He looked at her, really looked, as if seeing through her skin to something beneath. His hand shot up, grabbed her wrist. "Your eyes." His voice was barely a whisper, blood still on his lips. "You have her eyes." "Sir, stay calm. Don't try to speak." "Delphine." The name hit her like a physical blow. "What did you say?" "Delphine." His grip tightened on her wrist. Tears leaked from his grey eyes. "You came back." "My name isn't Delphine. I'm Dr. Chen. You've had a serious cardiac event. Paramedics are—" Those eyes. He was crying now, openly, desperately. 23 years. I never forgot those eyes. The paramedics arrived, pushed her aside, took over. Verity stood back, watched them load the billionaire onto a stretcher, watched them wheel him toward waiting ambulances. Delphine, her mother's name, a name she had never heard this man speak, a name that should have meant nothing to a stranger. But his grip on her wrist had felt like recognition. His tears had felt like reunion. His words had felt like a key turning in a lock she never knew existed. 23 years. She was 23 years old. The math was too precise, too specific, too terrifying. Verity pulled out her phone, called her mother. It was time for answers. 9:47 p.m. I was sitting in my darkened living room when the phone rang. Verity's name on the screen. My heart already knew what my mind refused to accept. "Hello?" "Mom." Her voice was clinical, controlled, the voice she used in operating rooms when everything was falling apart. "I need you to stay calm." "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, but something happened at the reception, the Harrington wedding." My free hand gripped the arm of my chair, knuckles white, lungs frozen. What kind of something? The groom collapsed, fell from a balcony, cardiac tamponade. I performed emergency pericardiocentesis. He's stable now, on his way to the hospital. You worked on him? On Cresswell Harrington? A pause. Too long. Too heavy. You know his name. Everyone knows that name. The Harringtons are... Stop. The word was a command. Sharp. Surgical. Stop lying to me, Mom. Right now. Verity. I don't... He said my name. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. Just enough to reveal the earthquake happening beneath her control. He looked at me and he said, Delphine. Your name. A name I've never heard him speak. A name he shouldn't know. I closed my eyes. The room spinning even in darkness. Let me explain. He said 23 years. He said he never forgot my eyes. My eyes, Mom. The grey eyes you always said came from my father. The father you told me was dead. Verity, please. Is he my father? The question hung between us. Decades of lies compressed into 5 words. I need to tell you something. My voice barely worked. Each syllable a mountain to climb. And you're going to hate me for not telling you sooner. Silence on the other end. The silence of someone bracing for impact. So, I told her. Everything. The summer at the Harrington estate. The lighthouse. The love that felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. The pregnancy. The threats. Colette's ultimatum. The lies I told to break his heart. The running. The hiding. The 23 years of watching from shadows while my daughter grew up without knowing her own story. I talked until my voice gave out, until the tears made words impossible, until there was nothing left to confess. Then I waited. Verity said nothing. 3 minutes passed, the longest 3 minutes of my life. Finally she spoke, the man whose life I just saved. Her voice was different now, cold, hollow. The man whose heart I literally held in my hands tonight is my biological father. Yes. A man you told me was dead. Yes. A man who has been alive this entire time, who has been looking for you, who never knew I existed. Yes. Another silence, longer this time, deep enough to drown in. You knew. Her voice shattered, rebuilt itself into something harder. You knew I was going to be in the same building as him tonight. You knew and you said nothing. I tried. You tried. You tried. Now, she was shouting. For the first time in memory, my controlled clinical daughter was screaming. You've had 23 years to try. 23 years of chances. Every single day you could have told me the truth. I was protecting you. Protecting me. From what? From knowing my own father. From understanding who I am, from having a choice about my own life, from the people who threatened to destroy us, from a world that would have... Your choices, your fears, your decisions about my life made without my consent. She laughed, bitter, broken. You know what's funny? I just saved a stranger's life, performed a procedure I've done 100 times, standard emergency intervention, except he wasn't a stranger, he was my father, and I didn't know. Verity. I held his heart in my hands. Her voice dropped to a whisper. His actual heart, and I didn't know it was connected to mine. Please let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You lied. For my entire life. About the most fundamental truth of my existence. I was trying to protect. Stop. The word was final. Complete. I can't hear any more justifications. Any more excuses. Any more stories about how your lies were actually love in disguise. What do you want me to do? I don't know. I don't know anything right now. I don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. I don't know what's real and what's another carefully constructed fiction designed to protect me from truths you decided I couldn't handle. The line crackled. I heard her breathing, ragged, fighting for control. I need to go. They're prepping him for surgery, real surgery this time. His skull fracture needs intervention. Will you call me after? No response. Verity? I don't know if I can talk to you right now. I don't know if I can look at you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust another word you say. I love you. Whatever you think of me, whatever happens, I love you." The line went dead. I sat in my darkened living room, phone pressed against my chest, and let 23 years of tears finally fall. Imagine finding out that everything you believed about your own story was a lie, that the person who lied to you was the one you trusted most. Hit that like button if you've ever had to rebuild your understanding of your own life. And make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next? It changes everything. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly white. Verity stood outside the surgical suite, where another surgeon was operating on Cresswell Harrington's skull fracture. A procedure she could have performed, should have performed, but she had recused herself the moment she understood the truth. Conflict of interest, that's what she told the attending physician. A personal connection to the patient. She didn't explain that the personal connection was blood, was DNA, was 23 years of absence finally crashing into presence. Her father, the words still felt foreign, wrong, like a language she had never learned trying to force itself into her brain. For 23 years, she had carried a ghost, a dead man named Michael Chen, who had loved her mother briefly and died tragically before Verity could know him. Now that ghost had flesh, had a name, had grey eyes exactly like hers. Cresswell Harrington III, billionaire, business titan, the man whose heart she had held in her hands without knowing it beat with the same rhythm as her own. Her phone buzzed. Messages from colleagues wondering where she had gone, from the conference organizers thanking her for the emergency response, from news outlets already spinning the story of the heroic surgeon who saved a billionaire's life at his own wedding. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened a browser, typed his name, started reading articles she had never paid attention to before, photographs she had scrolled past without seeing, a life documented in public records and society pages that suddenly felt like pieces of her own puzzle. Born 1979. Yale University, MBA from Wharton. Took over Harrington Enterprises at 30. First marriage to Penelope Ashworth Hayes. Divorced after 3 years. Various relationships, none lasting. Engagement to Marlena Vance Worthington announced 6 months ago, and buried in older articles. Mentions of a summer 23 years ago, a brief scandal quickly suppressed, rumors of a servant girl, a pregnancy, a payoff. Her mother had been a scandal, a problem to be solved, a threat to be neutralized. Verity closed the browser, couldn't read any more. Her entire identity was built on lies. The hard-working immigrant father who died too young, the resilience that came from tragedy, the self-made success story that proved anyone could rise from nothing. All fiction, all carefully constructed narrative designed to hide the truth. She wasn't self-made. She was the product of a forbidden love affair between a servant and a billionaire heir. She carried Harrington blood in her veins, Harrington genes in her cells, Harrington eyes in her face. Everything she thought she knew about herself was wrong. The surgery door opened. A colleague emerged, stripping off gloves. "Dr. Chen, the patient is stable. Surgery went well. We're moving him to recovery." "Good. That's good. You performed an incredible intervention tonight. That pericardiocentesis in the field, it saved his life. He owes you everything. He owes me everything. Or maybe I owe him everything. Or maybe we owe each other nothing because we never had the chance to owe each other anything at all. Can I see him?" The words came out before she could stop them. "When he wakes up." "He's listed family only for visitors, but given your role in saving his life, I'm sure an exception can be made." Family only. She was family. Biologically, genetically, legally, perhaps, depending on how paternity worked when the father never knew the child existed. "I'll wait," she said. She found a chair in the corridor, sat, stared at white walls. Hours passed. Nurses moved through hallways. Machines beeped in distant rooms. The hospital continued its endless rhythm of crisis and recovery, and Verity sat with the shattered pieces of her identity, trying to figure out how to put them back together. Her phone rang. Her mother again. She declined the call. A text followed. "Please, Verity, Let me explain in person. Let me— Oh, she stopped reading. There was nothing her mother could say that would undo 23 years. Nothing that would restore the trust that had been built on a foundation of sand. Nothing that would answer the fundamental question burning through her mind. Who am I, if everything I believed about myself was a lie? She would have to find out. Starting with the man recovering in a room down the hall. Starting with her father. The highway stretched endless and black before me. 4 hours from Seattle to Boston by plane. I couldn't wait for a plane. Couldn't sit in an airport surrounded by strangers while my daughter's silence screamed through my phone. So I drove. Rental car. Red-eye departure. Highway cutting through darkness like a wound through flesh. My mind raced faster than the speedometer. Every scenario. Every possible outcome. Every word I might say and every response she might give. She hated me. That much was clear from our phone call. 23 years of love and sacrifice and protection, all of it meaningless now. All of it poisoned by the lie that had made it possible. I should have told her sooner. Should have found the words when she was old enough to understand. Should have trusted her with the truth, instead of deciding she couldn't handle it. But when? At 5, when she asked about her father. At 12, when she demanded details I couldn't provide. At 18, when she left for college with grey eyes that belonged to a man she'd never met. There was never a right time. That was the excuse I had repeated until I believed it. The truth was simpler. I was afraid. Afraid of losing her. Afraid of facing what I had done. Afraid of watching her choose him over me. And now all those fears were coming true anyway. The darkness outside my windows felt appropriate. 23 years of shadows finally catching up. 23 years of running finally ending. I passed exits and truck stops and small towns sleeping through the night. America scrolling past like credits on a film I had never wanted to make. Dawn broke somewhere over Pennsylvania. Grey light bleeding into pink and gold. A new day beginning whether I was ready for it or not. By the time I reached Boston, the sun was fully up. Harsh and bright and unforgiving. The hospital was chaos. News vans lined the street outside St. Augustine's Medical Center. Reporters clustered near the entrance, cameras ready, microphones extended toward anyone who emerged. Police officers managed the crowd, creating barriers that kept the media at bay. Billionaire collapses at own wedding, saved by heroic surgeon. I heard the headline from a reporter doing a live broadcast as I circled the block looking for parking. Kress was news. His collapse was news. And somewhere in there, my daughter had become news too. The heroic surgeon, the woman who saved his life, the mysterious doctor whose quick thinking had prevented tragedy. They didn't know the rest. Didn't know that the surgeon shared DNA with her patient. Didn't know that the collapse had triggered a different kind of collapse, the destruction of everything I had built. I found parking 3 blocks away. Walked toward the hospital through crowds of curious onlookers and frustrated journalists. Getting inside would be impossible through the main entrance. Security had been tripled. Only family members and essential staff were being admitted. But I had spent years as a nurse, had worked hospitals from Albuquerque to Seattle, had learned the back entrances, the service corridors, the paths that staff used when they needed to avoid chaos. My old credentials wouldn't work, but confidence often succeeded where identification failed. I found a service entrance on the building's east side, walked in like I belonged there, nodded at a security guard who barely glanced up from his phone. Inside, the hospital hummed with controlled tension. Staff moved quickly. Phones rang constantly. The presence of a billionaire patient had elevated everything to crisis level. I navigated toward the surgical wing, checked patient boards for Kress's room number, found it listed under a pseudonym, standard practice for high-profile patients. But Verity wouldn't be in his room. She had recused herself, would be somewhere else, processing, trying to make sense of a world that no longer made sense. I checked the surgical floor, the conference rooms, the cafeteria. Finally, I found her. A supply closet near the operating suites, door slightly ajar, light spilling from within. I pushed the door open. Verity sat on an overturned supply crate, still wearing scrubs from the night before. Scrubs stained with blood. Her father's blood. She looked up when I entered, grey eyes meeting mine. The eyes I had loved for 23 years. The eyes that belonged to the man down the hall. "Mom," her voice was flat, empty, the voice of someone who had cried until tears no longer came. "I'm here." I stepped inside, closed the door. "I'm here." The supply closet smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. Verity didn't move when I sat beside her on another overturned crate. Didn't reach for me, didn't push me away, just stared at the floor with eyes that had seen too much in the past 12 hours. "I couldn't do it." Her voice cracked. "His wife came to thank me, Marlena. She held my hands and told me I was a hero. She said her husband would be alive because of me. What did you say?" "Nothing." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. I said nothing. I smiled and accepted her gratitude and kept my mouth shut about the fact that the man I saved is my biological father. She finally looked at me. The anger was still there, the betrayal, the grief, but underneath it all, something else, something that looked almost like relief. All my life, I felt like something was missing, a hole in my story that no amount of success could fill. She shook her head. "I thought it was because my father died, because I never got to know him, because tragedy had stolen something I could never recover. Verity, but it wasn't tragedy. It was you." The words hit like fists. "You stole that from me. You decided what I could know about my own life. You built my entire identity on a foundation of lies." I absorbed the blow, deserved it, let it land without defense. "You're right. I know I'm right. I made choices I thought were protecting you, protecting him, protecting everyone, but I was also protecting myself." I met her eyes. "From this moment, from having to see the look on your face when you found out, the look on my face." She laughed again. "Hollow. You want to know the worst part? I understand why you did it. I've spent all night thinking about it, about Colette's threats, about Mama Rosa's papers, about the impossible position you were in at 17 years old. Then why? Understanding doesn't equal forgiveness." She cut me off. "I can understand your choices and still be devastated by them. I can see your logic and still grieve what was taken from me." "What was taken from you?" "A father." The word broke her. Tears finally spilling from eyes that had seemed empty. 23 years with a father who was alive, who could have known me, who could have watched me grow up, graduate, become a surgeon. Who could have been there? He couldn't have been there, not with Colette. "You don't know that." Verity stood, paced the small space. "You made that decision for everyone. You decided his mother was too powerful. You decided he couldn't fight. You decided I was better off without him. I was trying to protect. It wasn't his fault." She spun to face me. The accusation that cut deepest. "That's what kills me. It wasn't his fault. He didn't abandon me. He didn't choose money over his child. He didn't know I existed, because you made sure of that." I had no response, no defense, nothing that could undo 23 years of absence. "He fell in love with you," Verity continued. "He wanted to marry you. He was willing to give up everything, and you told him the baby wasn't his. You made him believe you never loved him." "I did love him." "Then why didn't you fight?" "Because fighting would have destroyed him." "You don't know that. I know what his mother was capable of. I know the resources she had. I know that if I had told him the truth, he would have thrown away everything to stand beside me, and I know that his mother would have made sure we lost. Maybe." Verity crossed her arms. "Or maybe you were 17 and terrified, and you made the choice that felt safest in the moment, and then you spent 23 years convincing yourself it was the only option." She was right. I had never let myself consider alternatives, had never allowed doubt to enter the narrative I had constructed. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I can't change the past. I can't give you back the years you lost. But I can help you move forward. If you want to tell him the truth, I'll support you. Whatever you need." Verity stopped pacing, stood still, looked at me with those grey eyes that had tormented and blessed me for 23 years. Do I want to tell him the truth? She repeated the question like she was hearing it for the first time. I don't know. I don't know anything right now. Then take your time. There's no rush. No rush? She laughed bitterly. He's down the hall. He's been asking about me. Apparently he keeps saying he needs to see the surgeon who saved his life. He keeps saying he needs to see my eyes again. My heart lurched. He recognized you. He recognized you. In me. Verity met my gaze. He looked at me, and he saw you. And now he wants answers. And I don't know if I can give them without telling him everything. Then maybe it's time. Time for what? Time for the truth. All of it. Before Verity could respond, the supply closet door swung open. She stood in the doorway like a threat wrapped in Vera Wang. Marlena Vance Worthington, the bride, the new wife, still wearing remnants of her wedding dress, now stained and wrinkled from hours at a hospital bedside. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. But her eyes were clear, calculating, sharp as surgical steel. Dr. Marchetti. She stepped into the supply closet, closed the door behind her. I've been looking for you. Verity stiffened beside me. How do you know my mother's name? Marlena smiled. The smile of someone holding weapons they couldn't wait to use. I know many things, Dr. Chen. Or should I say Dr. Harrington? Though I suppose that name was never officially yours. My blood turned to ice. What do you want? I stepped forward, positioned myself between Marlena and my daughter, an instinct older than thought. What I want is for the complications from my husband's past to stay buried where they belong. Marlena reached into the designer bag hanging from her shoulder, withdrew a folder, thick, old, familiar. She opened it, spread photographs across a supply shelf, a 17-year-old girl in a servant's uniform, dark hair, scared eyes, standing at a lighthouse against a backdrop of stars. Me, 23 years ago, the summer that changed everything. Colette Harrington was a thorough woman. Marlena traced a finger across the photograph. She kept records of every threat she neutralized, every problem she solved, every loose end she tied. Where did you get those? Her personal files, transferred to me upon her death, along with instructions for their use. Marlena's smile widened. My mother-in-law wanted to ensure her life's work wasn't undone by something as inconvenient as her absence. You have her files. Verity's voice was tight, controlled, professional. So what? Those documents are decades old. Whatever threats they contain died with Colette. Did they? Marlena pulled another photograph from the folder. Recent. Verity at a medical conference. Verity in her surgical scrubs. Verity with her father's eyes blazing from her face. I've been watching you, Dr. Chen. Ever since the engagement announcement. Ever since I started reviewing Colette's files and found references to a servant girl who vanished with something that didn't belong to her. I didn't vanish with anything. I left with my child. My child. A Harrington child. Marlena's voice hardened. Carrying Harrington blood, potentially entitled to Harrington fortune. I don't want his money. Verity stepped forward, stood beside me. United front. I have my own career, my own life, my own fortune, modest as it may be compared to yours. Please. Marlena laughed. You expect me to believe that? A woman discovers she's the secret daughter of one of the richest men in the country and she has no interest in his wealth. There are no coincidences where this family is concerned. My being at that wedding was a coincidence. I was on call. The original surgeon got sick. I was summoned. I didn't know who the patient was until I was already working on him. How convenient. It's the truth. The truth. Marlena repeated the word like it was something distasteful. Let me tell you about truth, Dr. Chen. Truth is whatever the powerful decide it is. Truth is whatever story has the most resources behind it. Truth is whatever narrative wins. She pulled out another item from her bag. An envelope. Thick, heavy. My stomach dropped. I recognized that thickness, that weight. She opened it. Withdrew a check. $2 million. Marlena held it up like a weapon. Updated for inflation. A generous offer. given that Colette's original payment was 500,000. We didn't take that money. No, your mother tore it up. Noble, foolish. She extended the check toward Verity, but I'm hoping her granddaughter is more practical. Verity stared at the check, at the number, at the zeros lined up like soldiers. Then she took it from Marlena's hand. For a terrible moment, my heart stopped. 23 years of sacrifice about to be undone by a number on a piece of paper. But Verity didn't fold the check into her pocket. She tore it in half, then tore it again, and again, until the pieces fluttered to the floor like expensive confetti. We don't take money for heartbreak. Verity's voice was ice. My grandmother said that 23 years ago, and I'm saying it now. Whatever you think you can buy with your money, it's not me. Marlena's smile faltered, just briefly, just enough to show the uncertainty beneath her confidence. You're making a mistake. No. Verity stepped closer. Close enough that Marlena had to tilt her head back to meet her eyes. You're making a mistake by assuming I'm someone you can threaten, by assuming I'll disappear because it's convenient for you, by assuming I care more about peace than about truth. You have no idea what you're up against. I have some idea. I've read the files too. I know what Colette was capable of. I know the resources she had. Verity smiled. Cold, surgical. But Colette is dead, and you're not her. You're a woman who married into power, not a woman who built it, and that difference matters more than you realize. Marlena's composure cracked, genuine anger flickering beneath the polished surface. You think you can threaten me? You're a surgeon with student loans and a modest apartment. I have lawyers who bill more per hour than you earn in a week. I don't need to threaten you. I just need to tell my father the truth. Your father? Marlena laughed, bitter, desperate. He's not your father, not legally, not practically, not in any way that matters. DNA says otherwise. DNA doesn't determine family, relationships do, history does, and you have neither. Then I guess I'll have to build them. The two women stared at each other, a standoff in a hospital supply closet, two futures colliding. Marlena broke first, stepped back, gathered her composure like scattered papers. He's asking for you. Her voice was calm again, controlled. The surgeon who saved his life. He keeps saying he needs to see your eyes again. Verity said nothing. I wonder what he'll think when he discovers those eyes belong to the daughter he never knew he had. Marlena opened the door, paused, looked back. I wonder if he'll thank you, or if he'll hate you for destroying the peace he's finally found. She left, the door closing softly behind her. Silence filled the supply closet. Then Verity spoke. I think I need to go talk to my father. The aftermath of Marlena's departure hung heavy in the small space. I looked at my daughter, really looked, seeing not just the woman she had become, but the child she had been. The infant with grey eyes who had stared up at me with fierce determination from her first breath. Are you sure? I asked. Once you tell him, there's no going back. There's already no going back. Verity gathered the torn pieces of Marlena's check, deposited them in a medical waste bin. I saved his life tonight. I held his heart in my hands. That already connects us in ways that can't be undone. But telling him the truth, it could change everything. Everything has already changed, Mom. She turned to face me. When I walked into that ballroom, I was Dr. Verity Chen, successful surgeon, orphaned daughter, self-made woman. You're still all those things. Am the first. She shook her head. I'm not orphaned. My father isn't dead in some tragic car accident. He's alive. He's down the hall. And he spent 23 years wondering why the only woman he ever loved betrayed him. I didn't betray him. I protected him. You lied to him, and then you let him believe those lies for 2 decades. That's not protection, that's control. The word stung, because she was right. I had told myself it was protection, had repeated the narrative until I believed it. But control was more accurate. I had decided what Cress could handle, what Verity could handle, what truth everyone was capable of receiving. I had made myself the arbiter of reality, and that was its own kind of cruelty. What are you going to tell him? I asked. Everything. Verity straightened her stained scrubs, pushed hair back from her face. I'm going to tell him who I am, who you are, what happened that summer and every summer since. And what about Marlena's threats? Let her threaten. Verity's voice hardened with determination. I've spent my entire career fighting for patients against systems that wanted them to fail. Insurance companies, hospital, administrators, the entire medical industrial complex. I'm not afraid of one woman with inherited power. She has resources. So do I. My own intelligence, my own career, my own reputation. She met my eyes. And something she doesn't have, the truth. The truth isn't always enough. Maybe not, but it's a start. She moved toward the door, paused, looked back at me. Are you coming? The question hit harder than expected. An invitation, a chance to participate in the moment I had been dreading for 23 years. Do you want me to? I don't know. Honest, brutal. Part of me wants you there. Part of me never wants to see you again. Part of me doesn't know how to feel anything anymore. That's fair. It's not fair. None of this is fair. Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back. But I think I need to face him alone first. I need to tell him the truth without you there, without him seeing you, without the distraction of his feelings for you complicating his feelings about me. I understand. Do you? She studied me, searching for something I wasn't sure I possessed. Do you understand what you did to him? Not to me, to him. You made him believe he was unlovable. You made him believe that every relationship was just another transaction. You made him believe that love was always a lie. I didn't mean. Meaning doesn't matter. Impact does. She opened the door. Wait here. I'll come back when it's done. If he wants to see you, that will be his choice, not mine. She left. I stood alone in the supply closet, surrounded by bandages and antiseptics and the ghosts of choices I could never undo. My daughter was walking toward her father. The truth was finally going to be spoken, and I had no idea what would happen when it landed. The corridor stretched before Verity like a path to execution. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Machines beeped in distant rooms. The antiseptic smell that usually felt like home now felt suffocating. Each step brought her closer to a door she wasn't sure she could open, a conversation she wasn't sure she could have, a truth she wasn't sure she could speak. 23 years of lies, about to end with a single sentence. I'm your daughter. The words felt foreign on her tongue. She had practiced them in the supply closet, in the elevator, in the hallway. But they refused to feel natural, refused to feel real. She passed nurses who nodded at her, colleagues who offered concerned smiles. Everyone knew she had saved the billionaire's life. No one knew she was about to complicate it beyond measure. Marlena's security stood guard outside the private wing. 2 men in dark suits, earpieces, professional scowls. Dr. Chen. One of them stepped forward. Mrs. Harrington has requested that no unauthorized personnel. I'm the surgeon who saved his life. Verity kept walking, didn't slow. And he's been asking for me. Are you going to tell a recovering patient he can't see his doctor? The guards exchanged glances, stepped aside. The private wing was quieter, emptier. The hustle of the main hospital replaced by the muffled tension of family crisis. She passed a waiting room. Glimpsed Harrington family members gathered inside. Grey-haired men in expensive suits, elegant women clutching phones, all of them strangers. All of them, technically, her relatives. Did they know? Had Marlena told them about the supply closet confrontation? Were they already strategizing against this new threat to the family fortune? Verity kept walking. Couldn't think about that now. Room 712. Private suite. The best the hospital could offer. She stopped outside the door. Hand raised. Unable to knock. What do I even say? The question had plagued her since the supply closet. Since she made the decision to confront him. Since she chose truth over peace. Hello, I'm your daughter seemed too blunt. Too clinical. like delivering a diagnosis rather than revealing a relationship. My mother lied to you 23 years ago felt like accusation, like she was there to wound rather than connect. I just wanted you to know I exist sounded pathetic, desperate, like a child seeking validation she didn't need. None of the words were right, but standing in the hallway forever wasn't an option either. The door opened before she could knock. A nurse emerged, startled slightly at finding Verity there. "Dr. Chen, Mr. Harrington has been asking for you. He's awake, stable, but agitated. Maybe seeing you will help settle him." "Thank you." The nurse disappeared down the corridor. The door remained open. Now or never. Verity stepped inside. The room was dimmer than expected. Curtains partially drawn. Machines humming softly. The controlled chaos of a patient recovering from skull surgery reduced to beeps and blinking lights. And in the center of it all, propped against pillows, Cresswell Harrington III. He looked smaller than he had at the wedding reception. Older. Fragile, in a way billionaires weren't supposed to be fragile. Bandages wrapped his head. IV lines threaded into his arms. Monitors tracked his vital signs with mechanical precision. But his eyes, those grey eyes, were clear, alert, fixed on her the moment she entered. "You came back." His voice was rougher than before, strained by surgery and medication. But underneath the weakness, recognition, hope. The surgeon. Yes. Verity stood just inside the doorway, unable to move closer, unable to retreat. The silence between them expanded, filled with things neither knew how to say. She studied his face while he studied hers. Seeing the resemblance she had missed before, the shape of his jaw echoed in her own, the arch of his eyebrows, the way he held his head at a slight angle when he was thinking. Her father. This stranger was her father. "You have her eyes." He spoke first, voice cracking with emotion. "The only woman I ever really loved. She had eyes exactly like yours." Verity's heart hammered against her ribs. The moment arriving, whether she was ready or not. "I know." "You know?" Confusion creased his bruised forehead. "How could you know?" "Because she's my mother." The words fell like stones into still water, ripples spreading outward, silence deepening. Cress stared at her, processing, calculating, refusing to accept what his eyes were telling him. "That's not possible." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Delphine's child wasn't mine. She told me that she lied." "No." He shook his head, winced at the pain the movement caused. "She looked me in the eyes. She said she never loved me. She said the baby was someone else's. She lied to protect you." Verity took a step closer. "To protect her mother, to protect me. Your mother threatened to destroy everyone she loved if she didn't disappear." "My mother?" Colette gave her a choice. Tell you the truth and watch everyone suffer, or lie, break your heart, and keep everyone safe. Cress's monitors began beeping faster, heart rate climbing, blood pressure spiking. Verity the surgeon recognized the danger. This stress could trigger complications, could undo the work done to save him. But Verity the daughter couldn't stop. Not now. Not when the truth was finally being spoken. "I'm 23 years old." She moved closer to his bed, close enough to touch. "I was born 9 months after the summer of 2001. Do the math." She watched him do exactly that. Watched understanding dawn across features she recognized because they were her own. Watched 23 years of believed betrayal crumble to dust. "The lighthouse," he breathed. "That summer, the pregnancy, was yours, was always yours." "But she said," "She lied because your mother gave her no choice, because protecting you meant destroying you, because love sometimes looks like betrayal when you can't see the whole picture." His eyes filled with tears, not the tears of grief, the tears of something else, something that looked like wonder, like recognition, like a man seeing sunlight for the first time after decades in darkness. "My daughter." He tested the words. "You're my daughter." "Yes." 23 years. His voice broke completely. I had a daughter for 23 years and I didn't know. I didn't know either, not until last night, not until I saved your life and you looked at me and said her name. He reached for her hand. Verity let him take it, felt his fingers, her father's fingers, wrap around hers with desperate strength. I looked for her. Tears streamed down his face. For years, decades, I hired investigators, searched records. I couldn't believe she was gone. She never went far. She watched you from a distance, read every article, followed every story. She never stopped loving you. Then why? Because she thought protecting you meant staying away. Because she believed your mother would destroy everyone if she came back. Because she made choices at 17 that she couldn't undo at 40. His grip on her hand tightened. His eyes searched her face, finding pieces of himself in features shaped by a love he thought had been a lie. Verity. He said her name like a prayer. Your mother named you Verity. It means truth. I know what it means. A broken laugh escaped his lips. The woman who lied to destroy me named her daughter Truth, our daughter Truth. She wanted me to stand for something she couldn't give you herself. The monitors continued their worried beeping. Nurses would come soon. Doctors would intervene. This reunion would be interrupted by medical necessity. But for this moment, these precious seconds, father and daughter sat in the truth at last. Cress couldn't stop looking at her. His daughter. The word still felt impossible, a fantasy conjured by medication and trauma. But she stood before him, real, solid, undeniable, with his eyes in her face and his blood in her veins. I don't understand. His mind struggled against decades of believed reality. She looked me in the eyes. At the lighthouse, she said the words. She said she never loved me. I know. I believed her. For 23 years I believed her. I know. I built my entire life on that belief. The admission tore from his chest like a confession. Every relationship, every marriage, every failed connection, I told myself that love was a transaction, that everyone was using me, that the only woman who ever saw me for myself had turned out to be the biggest liar of all. She wasn't lying about loving you. Verity's voice softened. She was lying about everything else, but the love was real. How can you know that? Because I watched her. The answer came without hesitation. For 23 years, I watched her light candles on your birthday. I watched her cry during news stories about your company. I watched her save newspaper clippings about your achievements like they were treasures. She followed my life? She never stopped. She hated herself for leaving, but she hated the alternative more. Cress closed his eyes. Let the revelation wash over him. The woman he had loved, the woman he had believed betrayed him. She had been watching, waiting, suffering in parallel while he built walls against a wound she had inflicted to save him. Where is she now? Here, in the hospital, waiting. Waiting for what? For your choice, whether you want to see her or not. She said it should be your decision, not hers. His monitors beeped faster. A nurse appeared in the doorway, concern on her face. Mr. Harrington, your vitals are spiking. We need to... I'm fine. He didn't look away from Verity. Give us another minute. Sir, the doctor should really... I said I'm fine. The command in his voice was unmistakable. The nurse retreated. Verity. The surgeon recognized the risk. She's right. This is dangerous. Your heart has been through trauma. This stress could... I don't care. His grip on her hand tightened. I've been dead inside for 23 years. A little cardiac stress is nothing compared to what I've survived. You need to rest. I need to understand. His grey eyes, her eyes, bore into her with desperate intensity. Tell me everything, from the beginning. What happened that summer, what my mother did, why Delphine made the choice she made. It's a long story. I have time. You just had brain surgery. And I just found out I have a daughter. His voice cracked again. A daughter who saved my life, who held my heart in her hands without knowing it was connected to hers. The words echoed what Verity had said to her mother earlier. The same recognition, the same weight. You need to recover first. She found herself slipping into doctor mode, safer territory. Then we can talk about everything. No. He struggled to sit up. Failed. Tried again. I've waited 23 years for answers. I won't wait another day. You'll wait as long as your body needs. You sound like a surgeon. I am a surgeon. You sound like her. The observation came with wonder, stubborn, practical, refusing to let me get my way. I learned from the best. Father and daughter, still strangers, still learning each other. But something had shifted. Something impossible to name but impossible to ignore. They had the same eyes, the same stubborn set to their jaws, the same refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. They were family. The surgery went well, Verity said, shifting to professional assessment. The skull fracture is repaired, the bleeding has stopped, but you need rest, real rest, not emotional conversations that spike your blood pressure. I'll rest when I have answers. You'll rest now, and I'll come back tomorrow and the day after, and however many days it takes to tell you everything. Promise. The question was a child's question, vulnerable, hopeful, a man who had been abandoned by everyone he trusted, seeking assurance from a daughter he had just discovered. Promise. The door burst open. Marlena stormed in like a hurricane in designer heels. What are you doing? Her voice cut through the quiet. He just had surgery. You can't be in here stressing him with... Marlena. Cress's voice stopped her mid-stride. Calm, cold, commanding. Security appeared behind her. 2 men in dark suits, ready to remove the intruder from the billionaire's bedside. Harrington family members crowded the doorway, curious, concerned, calculating. Cress, darling. Marlena adjusted her tone, sweetened it, softened it. This woman has been making wild claims. She's clearly disturbed. We should have her removed before. Everyone out. The command silenced the room. Cress, I said everyone out. His eyes never left Verity's face. Except her. Marlena's composure shattered, genuine fury replacing the practiced sweetness. Cress, you don't know what she's claiming. This woman is trying to... I know exactly what she's claiming. His voice hardened. Because it's true. The room went still. Every breath suspended. Every calculation paused. That's impossible. Marlena stepped forward. Colette's files were clear. The servant girl was paid off. The child was someone else's. My mother lied. The admission cost him something. Verity could see it. 23 years of believing his mother. 23 years of trusting her version of events. All of it collapsing under the weight of grey eyes that matched his own. My mother lied to protect the family name, and she made Delphine lie to protect everything else. You can't know that. A DNA test. Look at her eyes. Cress pointed at Verity. Look at them. Really look. And tell me those aren't Harrington eyes. Marlena looked. The rest of the family looked. Even the security guards looked. And everyone saw what Cress had seen from the moment Verity had entered the ballroom. Recognition. Resemblance. Truth. This changes nothing. Marlena recovered quickly. Shifted tactics. Even if she is your biological offspring, she has no legal claim to... I don't want his money. Verity's voice cut through the calculation. I have my own career, my own life. I came here to tell the truth, not to stake a claim. Everyone wants money. Not everyone is you. The insult landed. Marlena's face flushed red. Cress, you cannot seriously be entertaining this. I said out. Cress's voice dropped to something dangerous. All of you. Now. No one moved. Do I need to call hospital security to remove my own family from my room? His eyes swept the gathered crowd. Because I will, and I'll do it while making sure every news camera outside captures the moment. The threat worked. Slowly, reluctantly, the family retreated. Marlena lingered longest. eyes blazing with fury that promised consequences. "This isn't over," she whispered to Verity as she passed. "I know." Then the room was empty. Father and daughter alone at last. Cress exhaled, the commanding CEO persona slipping away, leaving only a tired, wounded man. "I'm sorry about that." "Don't apologize. You couldn't have predicted any of this." "No, but I could have had a better family." He tried to smile. Failed. "My mother, my wife, every woman in my life has treated people like pieces on a chessboard." "Not every woman." "No." His grey eyes softened. "Not your mother. Never your mother." Silence settled between them. Comfortable now. The worst was over. The truth had been spoken. "Tell me everything," Cress said quietly. "From the beginning. I need to understand what happened, what I missed, what was taken from both of us." Verity sat in the chair beside his bed, took his hand, began to speak. "That night, my daughter told her father the truth. I had been too afraid to speak for 23 years. She told him about the lighthouse, about the love that burned so bright it threatened to consume us both, about the pregnancy that should have been our beginning and became our end. She told him about Colette, about the threats, about the immigration documents that hung over my mother's head like executioner's blade, about the impossible choice I faced at 17, destroy the man I loved or watch everyone I loved be destroyed. She told him about the lies I spoke at that lighthouse, the words that shattered him, the accusations that turned his love to hate and his hope to ash. She told him about the running, the hiding, the 23 years of watching from shadows while he grew colder and harder and more alone. She told him about me, about the candles on his birthday, about the newspaper clippings, about the woman who never stopped loving him even when she had to pretend she never started. And when she was finished, Cresswell Harrington III, billionaire, businessman, broken man, cried like a child who had finally found his way home. Some truths heal, others destroy, and some change everyone they touch. But the truth wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Because Marlena Harrington had no intention of losing her new fortune to a ghost from her husband's past. And she had weapons Colette never dreamed of. Modern weapons, digital weapons, the ability to destroy reputations with a single press release, the power to twist truth into lies and lies into truth. She wasn't going to disappear quietly. She wasn't going to accept defeat. She was going to fight with everything she had. What happens when a daughter reclaims the father she never knew? What happens when a man discovers the life he should have had? And what happens when a woman will do anything to stop them from finding out? If this story grabbed you, if you felt my impossible choice, if you understood my daughter's anger, if you're already wondering what happens next, then do 3 things right now. In case you have not, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new stories coming up. Drop a comment telling me whose side you're on, mine, Verity's, or Cress's. And share this video with someone who needs a story that reminds them the truth is always worth telling, even when it's terrifying. I'll see you in the next one.